Start off by acknowledging the Whadjuk Noongar people as the traditional custodians of the land where we are meeting this evening, and pay respects to their elders past and present. This is obviously a special council meeting, and the items that we will be considering will be confined to the items on the agenda. And I don't know if there have been submitted any public questions or statements. What I'll do is move to attendance. We have apologies from Councillor Michael Thomas and Councillor Katie Mason, and Councillor Heath is shown on the agenda as on an approved leave of absence, but she is such a trooper, she is here this evening. And Councillor Sadler is joining us, she's up on the screen there. During the special council meeting we may be sharing the screen so that we can see the officer's presentation, is that correct? Yeah. But I will start off at this point with asking Councillor Sadler to make the declaration that's required under the legislation to attend electronically.
Thank you, Mayor. With regard to the above referenced attendance for tonight's special council meeting and also for the agenda forum, I do declare that I've not attended more than half of council meetings held in the last 12 months, ending on the date of today's meeting, under authorisation from the Mayor to attend by electronic means. The location from which I'll be attending the meeting and the equipment I intend to use to attend the meeting are suitable for me to be able to effectively engage in deliberations and communications during the meeting, and I can maintain confidentiality during any part of the meeting which is closed to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sadler, and your declaration will be noted in the minutes. So we can take applications for leave of absence if anyone is wanting to put one in. That is an agenda item for this evening. So no applications for leave of absence. Declarations of interest in respect of the items on the agenda. No, thank you. We'll move straight to the reports of officers. 9.1.1, notice of intention to levy differential rates. That's on page 6. Thank you, Ms Cobby, for your work on that. And the officer's recommendation is on page 8, 9 and 10. Do I have a mover of the motion? Councillor Wilenko, and a seconder? Councillor Heath. Councillor Wilenko, actually just before I go on, if there are, I have asked for clarification type questions to be put before the meeting. I just want to ensure that everybody has all the information that they need to inform their decision making. So if you don't, then questions can be put now. Councillor Wilenko?
I actually do have one question, if that's okay. In the officer's report, it says that the rating categories have increased in line with the recommended increase to the rate of 3.9, but it also talks about a 4.4. I just wanted to confirm that these rate increases are 3.9. Thank you.
Through the Chair, yes, that's correct. The figures in the recommendation are the 3.9% increase.
Thank you. So it was moved, Councillor Wilenko, and seconded Councillor Heath. Councillor Wilenko, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you very much. Look, I think it's a very reasonable rate increase, 3.9%, below 4%. I note that the minimum has been brought back up, but the reason for that is it's a phase correction from what was a rate that reflected COVID, and it's been brought back up again now. So that's why we have the minimum rate coming up such as it is. But otherwise, it seems to me that this is a reasonable rate increase given the activity that this council is involved in, and will help to fund the activities going forward over the next year. And I commend it to council.
Thank you. And Councillor Heath?
No, nothing further to add, thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone want to speak against, bearing in mind the motion is simply at this stage to advertise this as the differential rate? Did anyone want to speak against the motion? No? Okay, I'll put it to the vote. All in favour? That is unanimous, and I know Councillor Sadler has her hand up as well. Thank you. So that motion is passed. Then turning to 9.1.2, the proposed demolition of 2 single-storey commercial buildings and construction of mixed-use development at lots 50, that's 7 and 35, 11 Station Street, Cottesloe. There was, given the time constraints, we only found out about this application going before WAPC mid-afternoon on Thursday, and there's obviously a lot to digest. So there wasn't an officer's report circulated to elected members. Is that now on the? Is that now available? The officer's report on the town's website? No. So apologies for that, but I will say it is not due to our poor time performance. We are really struggling to meet the timeframes that are imposed on us by WAPC, and I might say many would say quite unfairly. So I think what we're going to do is have a presentation from the officers, and can we have the motion that we're asked to support put up on the board? Has everybody seen the information that was sent out earlier today? It wasn't circulated generally because of time constraints. Just looking at the... Sorry? Yeah. Sorry, we're just working with the technology to get the information. I can, at this point, while we're waiting, just in a nutshell, describe to members of the public, the officers will be putting making a deputation to WAPC on Thursday, and they've outlined the gist of the points that will be made in that presentation. Deputy Mayor Harkins will be attending, representing the Cottesloe community, as I'm required to attend an audit entry meeting on behalf of the town at the same time. And the officer's report is going to go through the gist, and as I understand, we've asked to note the gist of the arguments that will be made before WAPC and to endorse them. I think that captures it, yeah. And I think the reason for this is we really want our community to understand that we will be making representations and, importantly, that we will continue to advocate for the best design outcomes for Cottesloe. Sorry, I've brought up the wrong document myself.
Yeah, not looking at it now. Just having a trying to get council to view it, so I'm just checking with her.
We can see it. We can see it.
I
Yeah.
know, but councillor Sadler, I might not be able
But
to
she
check.
can get it via email.
Yeah.
Councillor Sadler, do you have access to...
Emails?
Councillor Sadler, are you still with us?
Yes, I am,
Um,
and I've had a chance to read it.
Thank you.
so-
Thank you. Yep. So, on that note, I will hand over to the CEO to take us through, I think I described it as the gist,
Yeah,
the vibe.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think the situation is that we've been granted 10 minutes on Thursday to speak, and I think we're trying to time ourselves so we utilise that time appropriately. The Deputy Mayor has timed her presentation at 4 minutes, and I think between Paul and myself we have got 6. And I think Paul's going to cover the major planning issues, which we'll put up on screen now if we can. And I'm going to talk a little bit about process. Councillor will be aware that before the Statutory Planning Committee on Wednesday, we actually have the precinct plan amendment being considered. And unfortunately, we don't know the result of that until Wednesday afternoon. So that could be a very satisfactory result for us if they were to recommend the adoption of our amendment, because that would certainly be getting passed on to the SDAU on Thursday. But until that occurs on Wednesday, we can't really comment very much on that. But we certainly hope that, you know, our very considered precinct plan will be adopted, or at least referred for adoption. If it's not, we'll be a little bit more worried about how successful we'll be on Thursday. There you go now. Okay, over to you, Paul.
Right, through the chair. So what I'll do is I'll just outline briefly the presentation that, from a planning perspective, we're making on to the SDAU on Thursday. So the first page, and if I could ask Jackie just to work through the pages. So the first page is really looking at the local planning framework. So what we're doing here is advising the SDAU that both the town and the Shire of Peppermint Grove have been working very hard over the past few years, and particularly last year, to establish a really high quality planning framework for the Cottesloe village area. And that's via a precinct structure plan for the area, as well as preparing town planning scheme amendments to complement that precinct structure plan. Now, as the CEO mentioned, the SPC, so the Statutory Planning Committee of the WAPC, is considering the Towers Town Planning Scheme amendments tomorrow, and we will be making a deputation to the SPC tomorrow as well, encouraging certain provisions to be included within the scheme amendment process. So our view is that the proposed application, if approved, would undermine this strategic planning process, which we've been diligently preparing in accordance with the WAPC guidelines for precinct plans. What we would do here is really just to illustrate to the State Design Review Panel some of the work and comprehensive planning work that's been involved. Here is a copy of the illustrated version of the precinct planning work that we've been doing. It describes a holistic approach to planning. It talks about the fact that we've done some very considerable land use analysis and built form capacity modelling work. We're looking at height in certain locations where it's appropriate. The precinct plan is looking at the potential for 16 storeys at Cottesloe Central, for instance. So height is something that the precinct plan is contemplating, but in the right locations. And preserving Napoleon Street's high street character is one of the fundamental design objectives of the precinct planning work. And just to emphasise the fact that we've carefully considered the graduation of height scale across the village, and you can see the graduation of height. And in this particular slide, you can see the emphasis on protecting solar access to Napoleon Street, and in that respect, limiting heights immediately to the north of Napoleon Street and south of Station Street as well. This was something that the community was very prominent in respect to as part of our community engagement, and the State Design Review panel was supportive in the SDU report, was supportive of the town's position in this respect. And we've highlighted some overshadowing. This is rather technical, but in essence, if you go to the next slide, please, Jacqueline, this really just illustrates that in order to protect the southern side of Napoleon Street from shadow, our modelling had indicated that around about 10 storeys is about the height at which, more than that, you do cast shadow across Napoleon Street, particularly the southern side, which we are keen to protect in terms of solar access for all the benefits that sunlight brings, in terms of warmth, in terms of flexibility for businesses, and the general ambience that it provides in terms of and that's well known in broader urban design principles in terms of solar access and protecting solar access. Again, the SDAU, the State Design Review panel, had some strong views on this as well. There were some potential alternatives, workshop with the department that the applicant was involved in as well, but that in the end was not progressed. We wanted to highlight, next slide please, Jacqueline, built form and scale. And in this respect, in particular, in our view, overbearing impact that the tower, particularly the eastern tower, would have immediately adjoining Donati Lane and the Albion Hotel and car park areas. There's limited setbacks on the western side and the eastern face, and we just feel again that there will be a significant visual impact, detrimental visual impact. Again, it was the State Design Review panel agreed with this position. In terms of public realm and water management, the SDO application is heavily conditioned. There are a number of conditions relating to improvements to the public realm as well as improvements to stormwater management. It raises uncertainties for the town in respect to what is expected in terms of the streetscape on Station Street, the removal of car parking bays on Station Street, and how potentially stormwater drainage within the development, which is to be kept within on-site, is to be accommodated within the basement areas, and what that might mean to car parking as well, but particularly the lack of holistic understanding on what this development may mean for the town and for Station Street. It raises concerns, it raises uncertainty. There are requirements for agreements between the town and the applicant, but we're not sure what would be involved in that process, and we remain a little concerned about how water management is to be achieved. So there's uncertainties there. It may well affect matters such as a cash in lieu for parking as well. We also, setting aside this point too, have some concerns around public art, and we would raise that with the State Development Assessment Unit as well. So we also wanted to raise the process, our disappointment at the timing of the State Development Assessment Unit meeting immediately following the State Planning Commission meeting. We see there is little opportunity for a decision of the State Planning Committee to influence the SDAU decision the following day. So our ultimate suggestion then, or a request to the SDAU would be to look at either refusing the development on the basis of the points we've raised, or at least to defer the decision to allow the precinct plan and the accompanying scheme amendments to be advertised and finally considered by the Commission before a decision made on the application.
Thank you. And I think we'll go to the next part and then take any questions after that. And yeah, Mr. Newman?
Well, we covered the last part, which I was going to be actually pretty firm on, to be honest, because I feel in terms of due process, there's something missing here, and my belief is the timing is really very unfair on us. It is quite unusual to have a precinct plan have had so much work done on it, and so much time invested in it, so many resources invested in it, actually preparing it, and then have it not even considered in the officer's report, which has been presented on Thursday. I think that's probably the part of the due process that I'm concerned about, that were our precinct plan properly considered, would the officer report have stood as it currently does, recommending for the development? And I'll be asking that question.
Councillor Harkins, did you want to?
Well, shall I move the motion and speak to it?
Well, I'm just wanting to see if there are questions, and given the nature of the process that we're going through at the moment, comments. But maybe if you phrase them as questions, that'll comply with standing orders. So,
Unless you want me to give the presentation so people can make comment on that.
Yeah. So we'll listen to, and I understand that these are the ideas. There's still a little bit of work to be done.
Madam Mayor, we are getting together tomorrow afternoon to finesse it. So, yeah, there's a meeting tomorrow afternoon to finesse our presentation.
Thank you.
So I'll just give you a version of today's version of what I'm planning on saying. The town planners have addressed the technical aspects of the proposal. I will be representing the views of the Cottesloe community because the Mayor is unable to attend, and the Mayor represents the views of the Cottesloe community. The community have expressed their views via submissions, with 91% of the submissions wanting changes or no support. The community acknowledges that Station Street is an ideal location for increased density. That is why we've been working with the Shire of Peppermint Grove to develop a precinct plan for the village, to guide development in this area, to develop a positive area for residents and visitors. The precinct plan demonstrates that a 10-storey height is the maximum the area can tolerate without significant impact on the character and amenity of our high street from overshadowing. The town's consultation with the community identified support for increased density in their village, along with a strong desire to retain the character and amenity of Napoleon Street, with its vibrant cafes, shops and year-round meeting places as the heart of the village. It's important to our community that Napoleon Street retain its blue sky outlook and not be overshadowed by development. The biggest objection raised repeatedly by the community is the overshadowing of our village centre, namely Napoleon Street, created by this 17-storey proposal. We have actively engaged with our community to get the right balance in the village, to ensure that we get infill and vibrancy without losing the village's character and amenity, At 15 and 17 stories, the proposed redevelopment is well above that 10-storey threshold, beyond which development comes at the cost of significant adverse impact on the existing village character. The village feel cannot be replicated on Station Street. Once that is lost, it's gone forever. In her report, the officer acknowledges that development will have a significant negative impact on Napoleon Street and the character of the village. That view is echoed by the state's own design review panel, which stated, to quote, "The proposal is not an appropriate scale for the location, given the year-round negative impacts on the character, amenity and viability of Napoleon Street, the primary high street of the area and the heart of the Cottesloe town centre." That's a direct quote. The report refers to a series of workshops that were facilitated by the department with the proponent to further discuss and explore the matters relating to overshadowing, in particular impacts on Napoleon Street. Through this process, it was established that a development of up to 14 stories along Station Street, tapering down to 10 stories towards the southern boundary, would address the direct impact of overshadowing to the southern side of Napoleon Street, and a diagram has been provided in the report. However, the applicant submitted plans at 15 and 17 stories respectively. The officer's report reflects at best lukewarm support for this development, and on behalf of Cottesloe and the wider community, I urge the panel to reject this proposal in its current form. Thank you.
Well, we're not going to lose decorum, but I do feel like in my head I'm giving a really strong round of applause on that. So are there questions and comments? I might start there and go around there. Thanks.
Mine, I thank you to the administration for all this work that you've done, and to Councillor Harkins for the work. It's fairly appalling, if not utterly appalling. And it's a minor thing, but you say here that the environmental sustainability implications, there are no perceived sustainable implications, but in fact the officer's recommendation means that there'll be a desire for a retention of mature trees instead of them being cut down. We might not have water flooding or whatever might happen with the application for that water management. So I would have actually said that there were sustainability implications, that the proposal is going to challenge various aspects of sustainability, and we're trying to retain it. But as I say, it's not hugely in the scheme of things, but let's get brownie points on sustainability when we can.
Thank you. I think we have to acknowledge that we're probably looking to trim stuff out rather than, unfortunately.
Well, I'm asking for it to be going just in terms of
the
agenda,
Yeah.
saying that there are no perceived sustainability implications.
Yeah.
I would say there are.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Heath?
Oh, just briefly to say I do strongly support Councillor Harkins' address that she'll be making on the Mayor's behalf. Thank you. And also thank you to the administration, because the report is so detailed and really reads very well, and I could understand it all. And yes, thank you.
I echo what was just said. For the administration, well done, good job. Just a question on the process. Is Deputy Mayor Harkins got 3 minutes what's the actual timing that we have to present? And would we be presenting also with Pepe Grove? Are they also attending the meeting tomorrow?
The intention, we've only been allocated 10 minutes, and I am very much encouraging Councillor Harkins to push back on that. That would allow the elected, the person elected to represent the Cottesloe community 4 minutes to speak on an application that's been considered over 400 days and many meetings with the applicant, and we get 4 minutes to comment. So I will be encouraging Councillor Deputy Mayor Harkins to push back on that, and it'll depend how persuasive she can be. But we won't be, I don't think that we have engaged at this stage with Peppermint Grove because the development is in Cottesloe, and to be presenting with Peppermint Grove would perhaps limit the time even further for the town. I would say in previous applications, members of the community have been allowed to address the Commission for the same amount of time that the town has. Members of the community representing groups with unknown numbers of members, which is highly unsatisfactory. If members of the community are given 10 minutes, it's incredibly unfair that the mayor or deputy mayor is given 4 minutes. I think the mayor and the deputy mayor will speak for the community, and we know that they represent the broad community. So I don't know if that's...
It's fine. I was meaning more Pepe presenting their view on the precinct plan was what I was more leaning to, if they can make their own submission, but talk in favour of the very valid points that Deputy Mayor Harkins has brought out about the precinct plan. Thank you for that explanation. The only other, I just had another question, is the great deck that Paul's put together. Can that be pre-distributed to the WAPC, or are you sending stuff to them? I just think the way that the summary that Paul gave as he went through each of the slides would maybe be nice in an executive summary, just to be a bit more punchy. But I really understand, the amount of efforts that's gone in to get that deck. But yeah, they'll probably only look at the first page, I suspect. And it's a pretty good deck though, Paul. So well done, mate.
Thank you. Councillor Willinco?
Just a couple of questions.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Through the chair, I had a look at the Statutory Planning Committee agenda. It's very full. So you're not going to have much time to present on this, on our precinct plan. But I also noticed that the chair of that committee is the same as the chair of the WAPC, Emma Cole. So presumably she'll be at both meetings. And if there is a decision in favour of the precinct plan, which one would think, would we anticipate, being as it seems to be supported by all parties, then at the very least the chair will be aware of that, hopefully, then at the meeting on Thursday. I guess my question is, do you anticipate that's the case, that she will be at both meetings? Do we have any idea that, I'm assuming so because she's a chair of both, but do we know?
I believe there's 3 members of the Statutory Planning Committee that are actually board members of the WA Planning Commission, so there'll be a few of them there that will know that both items are on the consecutive agendas, yes. Okay. So we live in hope.
Good. Good way to live. The other thing I noticed is in the WAPC agenda, it says here in the agenda that it is considered appropriate in this area that there be development as a high-density urban centre. And I think the point of the precinct plan is that that's exactly what we're saying, just not this level of density. Is that accord with our presentation?
Thank you. Councillor Sadler, I see your hand was up there.
Thank you. Just one query with regard to Deputy Mayor Harkins' presentation. I'm aware things are very tight. I wonder if there's any merit in very briefly alluding to the fact that Minister Carey, Minister of Planning, has been very vocal in his advocacy for al fresco, and the town actually has reduced its al fresco fees in deference to that, and the height is actually going to really undermine the very style of street that Minister Carey has been arguing for so strongly over the last few years. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Harkins, did you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I would like to just, in answer to Councillor Irvine's comment, we were sent an email just very late this evening because we had registered. And just to let you know, there are 3 written submissions from residents. There's 3 verbal presentations, including ours, and a verbal presentation from the proponent. So that's who will be speaking or giving a written submission or verbal submission.
Can I ask, do we know who the 2 of the 3? We're 1. Do we know who the other 2?
Residents who I don't recognise their name. Cottesloe residents.
And how long have they been allocated?
It doesn't say anyone. It doesn't give the time for anyone.
I wonder.
We were just advised that we had 10 minutes, but
Yeah.
it doesn't say how many the other people get.
Can I ask the CEO if this isn't something that we need to push back very firmly on residents? And thank you to the residents for showing an interest, but it actually is taking away time for the considered approach and the professional approach that the town staff have put together, and also that the Deputy Mayor and I have been working on to represent the people who actually elected us, to represent them. Is this something that we can query? What is the capacity in which these people are speaking?
Madam Mayor, we'll try to find out some more information tomorrow. I don't think we know that at the moment, whether they're speaking for the application or against the application, or what their time allocation is. But I think we will push home the need for, the community's representatives to be given the appropriate amount of time here.
Yeah, and it was always of concern that members of the community wanting to come along and have their say would be at the expense of time allocated to the town, which is very unfortunate, as I suspect that would be the case. My one comment is there was reference made to alternative design workshops where the applicant was, it looks very much like an attempt to persuade the applicant to reduce the height. Would it not be argued then that that's the best indication that we've got that this is not the right outcome for that site? It looks as though the State Development Assessment Unit itself and its officers have pushed for a different outcome. Is that not the best evidence that we've got that this is not the right outcome?
Can I go first, Paul? Because I actually think the most significant of the slides that Paul spoke on, and you probably didn't dwell on enough, is that slide that shows their alternative proposal, which, we don't know whether council would have supported it, but I think it would have been reasonable to have been put to us for consideration, because, there was some at least logic to the way it was designed to get a bit of more height and yet keep the shadow off Napoleon Street. And the fact that that was put up by the Commission's officers and seemingly rejected is a bit disappointing, really, because it did seem to provide a reasonable outcome to get extra height, but keep our number one concern, the overshadowing of Napoleon Street, protected. So I think we should actually really emphasise that.
And I think the second strongest is the state's own design review panel having made it very clear that they don't support this development. And I wonder if, unlike other reports on SDAU matters, which have been more persuasive in their support, or more definite, the officers' report in this matter seemed, as Councillor Harkins has said, lukewarm at best. It's basically, it's okay. On balance, you could approve it. And I just wonder if that accords with the planning staff's recollection of previous matters where it's been more assertive and positive towards the development. This seems to be much more, you could if you want to.
Through you, Chair, I haven't been here for the other SDAU applications, so I'm not quite sure how the SDAU officers, the strength of the arguments that were made, and the position of the State Design Review panels on those particular applications. But yeah, look, it is when you do read the State Design Review panel's comments, particularly from the most recent Design Review panel meeting, they are quite strong in their view that the bulk and scale are inappropriate, and they express significant concern in terms of overshadowing and the effect of the amenity on Napoleon Street. So it's quite clear.
And look, finally, you mentioned, Mr Nielsen, about uncertainty around what they're going to do about stormwater, and that it was uncertain what that means for parking, if I understand you correctly. I guess what I was thinking is, what's the worst that could mean for parking?
The issue with stormwater is that there's 4 basement levels, so there's a significant amount of water in an area that has a very high water table level to be removed and continually removed from the site. So the applicant had previously had conversations with the town about potentially utilising some of the town's drainage systems, but the applicant is now advising the State Design Review panel that all stormwater will be retained on site. So if that's the case, and there is the need then for additional water management infrastructure in the basement areas, what does that mean for parking in terms of reducing the amount of parking? These are uncertainties. We don't know that. And then in terms of the streetscape for Station Street, the applicant is looking as part of the streetscape improvements to remove the existing bays on Station Street and replace them with landscaping, hotel drop-off, those sorts of and emergency vehicles. So it does raise the question around parking. The applicant is providing the minimal amount of parking that is required under the current guidelines prepared adopted by the WRPC, and the Commission is the State Development Assessment Unit is suggesting that they're okay with that, but from our point of view, there's a very marginal shortfall. But from our point of view, we'd just be raising that, and in particular suggesting that potentially a cash in lieu condition may be appropriate in the event that there is a significant shortfall of parking from in either the basement areas or as a result of on-street parking. So we would be recommending that should the State Design Review panel look at approval, then introducing a cash in lieu, parking cash in lieu condition.
And so, as I understand it, it's a possible loss of on-site parking as well as parking on the road reserve.
Yes.
That would warrant consideration of cash in lieu.
Yeah, at the moment there is no condition
And
being applied.
When do we ask for that? Because we've got 10 minutes. When do we ask for it? And if WAPC accept the proponent's view that it'll all be fine, and then it turns out not to be fine, how do we go back and say it's not fine, we want cash in lieu?
Through you, Chair, if there isn't a condition for cash in lieu, then there wouldn't be cash in lieu provided.
So I think that would be...
So we would seek to quickly raise that matter with this State Design Review Panel meeting.
And can it be conditioned now? If in the event that this was approved, could a condition be that cash in lieu will be paid if there is a loss of on-site parking as a result of design or whatever construction issues?
Chair, we have developed a condition that we think might work.
Oh, okay, okay.
And normally you do provide a specific number, but given the uncertainty, there may be. We've looked at a potential condition that would allow the number to be determined at a later date.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And yes, I had, and then I'll come to Councillor Heath. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a follow-up to that. 2 points. One, I noticed in the WAPC agenda that I think, in fact, there is a cash in lieu condition already being recommended by the Commission. The officers to the Commission have already made a recommendation to that effect, so it might be worth looking at that. But my concern is not just parking, but also, as pointed out in our officers' report and summarizing the SDAU report, and I'll just, if I might just read this, the applicant's proposing to provide a detention tank which can pump stormwater to an infiltration system located within the deep soil zones at the northeast and southwest corners of the site. Now, as you pointed out, the water table is very high here, and we're talking 4 stories going down, and they're proposing to then effectively pump it deeper, I gather from reading this. So I'm not clear how that's going to work, and I guess I would really urge that question be raised, because it seems to me there's some real technical problems there, potentially.
Councillor Heath, I saw your hand, but can I go in on that? I had previously asked, because there is a condition that they produce a geotechnical report, which I had thought would be addressing the management of stormwater as well, given that it's actually a geotechnical issue. And what I understand the advice was that will be dealt with at the building permit stage. But it does cause a lot of concern that this won't work. And yeah, I wonder whether further thought could be given to whether that's something that really needs to be a point of focus. But I guess it would be the professional judgment of the planners as to whether we end up, the whole thing falls through at the building permit stage because they can't do what they think they're going to do. So, Councillor Heath?
I actually just wondered, is either of the 2 meetings live streamed or available online for those of us who can't make it?
Both?
Through your chair, yeah, they're both live streamed, as I understand it.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Sadler, did you have any further comment there? Thank you.
Mayor, could I just summarise a few things that I think got raised there, which we will emphasise further tomorrow? One's obviously around the parking, the high water table and the impact on disposal of water. I think we'll elaborate on the previous recommendations from the State Zone Design Review Panel. I think we'll pick up the issue on al fresco, and that's it. I think it's those 4 things
and
that we'll
the
workshops.
process.
That's right. I had that written down too. The workshops. So we'll pick up on those 5 things and include them on one of those slides that we talk about.
Thank you. So, looking at the motion that we are going to be moving, and that is that Council notes and supports the key points to be raised as part of the town's deputation to determine the application for lots 17 and 11 Station Street. And I think that is drafted broadly enough to include the points that have been raised at the meeting. I don't think it needs to be amended. Councillor Harkins, you moving that? Yep. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Irvine. Did anyone want to speak against the motion? I haven't got Councillor Sadler on the screen. I can't, yep. So nobody to speak against, so I'll put the motion to the vote. All in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. So that is passed. And I do really want to thank the town's staff who have done an amazing job in really very difficult circumstances. So thank you. And keep it up until Thursday afternoon. Thank you. So that's the end of the meeting at, what's the time? 6:24 p.m. closed. Thank you very much. I might just